It's time!
What is kicking, everybody? It is Tom back for another episode of Pickin Fights. Just don't going solo today. Keith had a prior obligation, but I knew I had to pop on here at least real quick the day after that incredible UFC 282. And I'm using the word incredible loosely. The first few fights of the card were actually really, really interesting. And not even the first few. I would say the entire card was really enjoyable, pretty much up until those last two fights that were really questionable. You had the Ankalaev and Blachowicz fight ending in a draw, and then Joe Rogan pressuring Jan Blachowicz to almost say that he felt that he lost. It was weird. And then when Joe went and interviewed Ankalaev was very upset with the decision, obviously, as one would expect after battling through those leg kicks for the second and the third that were really, really bothering him, moving into more of a grappling heavy approach in the later rounds of the fight. I mean, listen, I'm not upset at the draw. I think, you're looking at the first is a toss-up, very, very close round. I thought Ankalaev could have taken it. A lot of people were thinking Jan probably took it. And then the second was Jan's. The third was probably Jan's as well, when you consider the damage of accumulation of damage, rather, on those leg kicks. And then, Ankalaev probably takes the fourth, and then a really, really impressive, potentially 10-8 round in the fifth there. So I'm not upset with the draw, but the weird thing is obviously then at the press conference, Dana White talking about how they had just rebooked Glover or not rebooked, but they booked Glover again to fight for the belt against Jamahal Hill, who was a new player in this equation. And, considering the length of time that it takes to get fights done, the fact that that was all ready to go, signed, sealed, delivered by the press conference. And, that couldn't have been more than 30 minutes after the decision of a draw came out. It's just really weird, the timing of everything and the way it ended up going, considering. And it really makes you think about, the light heavyweight of old and really how much turmoil this light heavyweight division has been in since John Jones has left and he's went on his heavyweight pursuit. And then you have the fact of Pady Pimblett taking on Jared Gordon, someone that with the star power and potential career goals that Pady Pimblett has, you would expect him to tear through Jared Gordon. And Jared Gordon gave up a really, really good fight in the first round. It's a toss-up either way. A lot of people think that that went to Jared Gordon. I can absolutely see that. I'm not going to say that I think it went to Pady, but I really think that one's a very, very close round. I broke it out by minute, and I think Jared Gordon wins the first minute. He was landing the more impressive shots right off the bat. In the second minute, Pady Pimblett came back and is landing harder shots. It's not quite stinging, and Jared, you're not getting the reaction of Jared Gordon that you got out of Pady Pimblett, but you can tell by just the sound and where the shots landed. Those are hard, stiff shots that are coming in the second minute of the first round. And then I think Jared Gordon starts to take over, and it gets a little bit of a toss-up from then on. Jared Gordon starts to take over in the third. And I think the one that actually, now that I'm thinking about it, really seals it for him is the fact that he did get that takedown and won that first round on top. So I think in a fight that's going to be largely a toss-up, or a round that's going to be largely a toss-up, the guy who's going to win it on top in position, landing a couple ground and pound elbows from that top position, I think you got to give that first round to Jared Gordon. And then the second round goes to Pady Pimblett. Pady Pimblett was landing the harder shots there. I don't know if that's in too much of dispute either, that Pady's going to take the second round. Still a close contested round. And then you go on to the third round, where even Pady admittedly said that he was coasting, but then Dana White turns around and says that Jared Gordon shouldn't have coasted, but Jared Gordon was the one initiating the clinches and initiating the grappling exchange and trying to, impose his force on Pady Pimblett at that point. So, not sure what fight Dana White was watching or what they were trying to cover up. I'm not saying that they were trying to cover up or that, they had a preconceived notion or an outcome of what they wanted to happen. But, I think Jared Gordon was in the dominant position. He was landing some strikes, not a ton of output. But again, if you're looking at the rule book and the way these fights are judged, it's absolutely damage first. I can't say confidently that Pady Pimblett had more damage overwhelmingly for sure in that third round than Jared Gordon did. So you look at control, and you look at who had the better position. And who was initiating. And well, Jared Gordon for 4 out of 5 minutes was initiating. For Jared Gordon for probably 3 out of 5, 3.5, 4 out of 5 minutes had the better position. And but when damage is a moot point, you got to go to these other factors. And I think Jared Gordon in that third round won that third round, and because of the position and the large toss up and the back and forth nature of the first round, probably wins the first. And I think that should go to Jared Gordon. But I think ultimately it was a really tight, close matchup, tight fight. Obviously, Pady did end that fifth round in a more dominant position, landed a couple strikes, but nothing too heavy. Nothing happened really in the third round that I would think would push it over to Pady more than Jared Gordon. But I do think that first round is a toss up. And, if you want to say that, Pady's strikes were more significant than the volume of strikes that Jared Gordon landed, and that's even more so to give him the round when you're factoring in the takedown and the top position that Jared Gordon had at the end. I don't 100% agree, but I think it's at least plausible. So I'm not saying it's a robbery, but the thing that is concerning is where Pady goes from here. And if he's having such close fights with guys like Jared Gordon, the rest of the 155-pound division is licking their chops right now at the proximity. Proximity, that's not the right word, but at the possibility of being able to go after a guy and fight a guy like Pady Pimblett with the following, get those eyeballs, and go out and put on a show. Because I think, kind of similar what we saw with Erin Blanchfield and Meatball Molly McCann. Star power can be handed off, and now there's so many people who are watching that meatball fight and saw Erin Blanchfield just actually absolutely annihilate and run through her. How many of those people are then going to be interested to see where Erin Blanchfield goes and goes, oh wow, bringing those eyes to the sport and eyes to what Erin Blanchfield is trying to do and trying to accomplish. So either way, I think regardless, it's it is not as exciting if you're a Pady Pimblett, considering how this fight went for you. But the rest of the fight, rest of the card rather, was really interesting. You had Alex Morono, who was going to a victory against Santiago Ponzinibbio, and at the last second got hit with a left hand. I think they're still giving him his win bonus, and good for him showing up on 5 days' notice. He really was on his way to winning that fight. Dricus du Plessis just kind of was. I was very concerned when he was punching Darren Till in the beginning of the first round, looking at the ref. Was Darren Till saying I'm fine, and I was very concerned about the gas tank of Dricus, and we've seen at times him almost be better after he gets a little bit tired because it calms him down, but he was just way too gassed in that second round that he even admittedly took off. And then in the third, and even when he was gassed in the second and the first, he was able to just with like no energy left, just dive and get Darren Till to the ground, which really begs the question, how bad at takedown defense is Darren Till? Has he just gotten worse? And 85 might be a really hard division for him, especially when Dricus, like I said, with absolutely no energy or stamina left, is just diving on takedowns and getting you down. Really poor performance in terms of takedown defense from Darren Till. But there were points in the end of the first and in the second round where Darren Till looked like he was actually going to win the fight, and Dricus was able to manage. So if you're Darren Till, there's definitely something there, but not a great performance, and not the performance you wanted to show. Ilia Topuria went out there and absolutely, put it on Bryce Mitchell. There were points where Bryce Mitchell was coming back and he was landing too, so it wasn't like it was a total one-sided affair. But Ilia Topuria is showing you that he's absolutely the cream of the crop at that 145-pound division, and I can't wait to see what they go and they do with him. And you have the 18-year-old Raul Rosas Jr. in the first round, 244 in, submitting Jay Perrin, rear naked choke, exactly what he's done to a lot of other people. Really interesting to see where he can go. We know that Jay Perrin, obviously not the cream of the crop of the UFC, but knowing that Raul Rosas at 18 years old, just having his 18th birthday, can get in there and compete with caliber of talent inside of the UFC. All right, he might be the real deal. This is going to be really interesting to see what this 18-year-old can do. And you just wonder if he's going to have, kind of the Sage Northcutt or, slightly better Chase Hooper. But, we're not seeing the Chase Hooper experiment turn out too well. It's not Chase Hooper is, a world beater. He's kind of hanging around that high part of the unranked division. So we'll see what happens with Raul Rosas. So really interesting UFC 282 card last night. Before we move on to UFC Fight Night Cannonier versus Strickland. I want to say to everybody, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. We really appreciate the love that everyone's showing us. And, let us know on the bottom of the video what your thoughts are, what picks you're liking, what picks you're taking, what you're not taking, what picks of ours you like, and what you don't like. And, if maybe we missed something, if you have a good prop, let us know, and we could, feature it and maybe start looking at bets that way. Make sure you follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Pickin Winners and at Pickin Fights. All of our information is obviously below the screen, and you have Pickin Fights right here for me, Pickin Fights Tom. With that being said, and if you don't have a chance to watch us on YouTube, you can always listen to us on Spotify. The full video and audio will be there. Like I said earlier, what do you think of our picks? Leave us a comment. Let us know what your thoughts are. With that being said, we're going to go ahead and we are going to start with our prelim notables for UFC Fight Night Cannonier versus Strickland. All right. Prelim notables. Let me pull it up on my screen here. And there's actually a lot of really interesting fights rounding out this last UFC card of the year. A couple ones, you got Sergey Mazarov and Jordy Newson starting off the main card here. David Dvorak is a name against Manal Cape, a guy we've talked about before. Brian Battle, tough, most recent tough, or I guess second to most recent tough winner. He's fighting on Reinat Fakhretdinov. I doubt I said that properly. Machate versus Rafa Garcia, another good fight. Saeed Nurmagomedov, and Nurmagomedov's on the card. Julian Marquez, also on the card. Jake Mathews is coming back. Almost every single person on this prelim part of the fight here has somewhat of a recognizable name, at least to me. And I know I watch the UFC every week, so to say that might not be saying too much. But even still, there's going to be guys who show up on the bottom part of a card who you don't recognize. It's their first fight, or very early in their career. So to say that this last UFC Fight Night card is actually going to have a lot of semi-well-known to very well-known people on it is impressive. And obviously it's headlined by Sean Strickland and Jared Cannonier, which I think is going to be an absolute banger. And I'm not even totally sure where I'm going to go at with that one yet. But in terms of prelim locks and prelim notable fights, the first one I want to get into a little bit is going to be Jake Mathews versus Matthew Semelsburger, Semi the Jedi. And I think after the fight we just saw against Jake Mathews against Andre Fiallo, finishing him with that right cross, and Jake Mathews coming out saying that he's a new Jake Mathews. He's training much more efficiently and much more effectively now. He feels much better than he ever has, and actually going out and showing that. And after changing some things up, taking some time off after that submission loss against Sean Brady, taking a year and a half off before coming out against Andre Fiallo and looking much more improved at 28 years old, filled out, strong for the division. I'm really excited to see what Jake Mathews, the Celtic Kid, is going to be able to do moving forward. And then Matt Semelsburger, Semi the Jedi, is coming off a loss just 3 months ago against Alex Morono, guy we just saw get knocked out last night. He made a really funny face when he did it. But yeah, he's coming off, like I said, he it has the loss to Alex Morono 3 months ago. You got to be concerned about somebody coming back in, going to a decision, back and forth, banger of a fight. Alex Morono is always going to, be able to throw down. And we just saw him get knocked out at the end of a fight. Is that an accumulation of damage thing? And could that be in the future of Matthew Semelsburger here? He's got the win over AJ Fletcher, which was unanimous, and the knockout over Martin Sano, but he also has the loss against Chaos Williams. Looking at the version of, Jake Mathews that we saw most recently against Andre Fiallo, he was quick, he was powerful. He has when he's throwing his jab, he really throws from the legs, a strong part. And against Matthew Semelsburger, a guy who hasn't traditionally had chin issues in the past, but it is a guy who's absolutely hittable and down to throw. I just like Jake Mathews here. I like him a lot. I think at minus 240, you could take him to win by knockout or decision. I don't think a submission is in the future here against Semelsburger, especially Semelsburger is pretty adept on the ground too. I like Jake Mathews. He's got a 3-inch reach disadvantage, so he's gonna have to get in on the inside and punch, which I think plays to his game even better. He's gonna have a more powerful jab once he gets in there, the straight, the cross, the hooks, those inside interior punches, especially, and also the footwork too. So I like Jake Mathews as my prelim lock prelim notable against Matthew Semelsburger. Another one that I feel really confident about is going to be Julian Marquez over Deron Winn. First of all, Deron Winn coming in at 186 pounds is 5'6" against a 6'2" Julian Marquez. Cuban Missile Crisis. We're talking about an 8 inches of height, and typically height isn't something that I would look at when trying to decide a fight. But when you're giving up 8 inches, Deron Winn is a small meatball, strong guy, especially for 185 pounds. But I think Julian Marquez at this point, excuse me, is going to have a stronger stand-up game. I think he's gonna be able to land on Deron Winn. And last time we saw Deron Winn, he did not look good against Phil Hawes, getting finished. I just think we're gonna see much of the same game plan that's implemented. Julian Marquez being able to stay away from Deron Winn. I know there's only a 2-inch reach advantage, but when there is such a difference in height there and such a difference in physical size and just overall build, of the fighter, I got to go with Julian Marquez here. He's got some decent wins. His loss to Gregory Rodriguez, I'm not going to hold too much against him. Obviously Gregory Rodriguez is turning out to be one of the top guys in the division, in the 185-pound division. So he's got the submission win over Sam Alvey, Maki Bitolo. He's got that win, and he's got the submission win over Darren Stewart. A very close split decision loss to Alessio Di Chirico. Julian Marquez, I don't think he's a guy who's going to be at the top of the division, winning championships and vying for the belt. But I do think he is a very solid contender. Not ranked yet, but I do think he's going to have much better abilities and be positioned to get the win over Deron Winn. I think Deron Winn is doesn't have the power to his punches in order to put away a guy like Julian Marquez. He's traditionally really strong. In the head, it took a guy like RoboCop, who's knocking out a lot of people, to put away Julian Marquez. I don't see Deron Winn being able to have the power to stun him and land the follow-up shots and really put Julian Marquez away. So for that reason, I'm also going with Julian Marquez as a prelim notable. And we got a really interesting fight against with Said Nurmagomedov versus Said Yakub Kakhramonov. That's a really, really interesting fight. I'm going to have to go with Said Nurmagomedov. He is just more well-rounded. He's got the Nurmagomedov last name, but I think he's actually part of a different tree. But even with that being said, he's got a decent grappling game, but Said Nurmagomedov is much more of a striker, and he's a dynamic striker. He uses an active leg kicking game and a leg body kick game. He uses really active teeps and spinning attacks. I think he's just going to overwhelm Said Yakub Kakhramonov, and he's going to be better at him in anywhere that the fight could take place. I think is going to be to the advantage of Said Nurmagomedov. So I'm going to go with him as well. And you have a guy coming in, another notable prelim lock that I wanted to touch on just really quickly. I think I might have one more that I want to share with you too. Like I said, littered with people that you know and have heard of. You have Mahachete coming in here at 23 years old. His second fight in the official UFC. First, he knocked out Steve Garcia with that counter right 5 months ago. That's coming in off the unanimous decision win over Achilles Estramurda on the Contender Series. Not a ton of high quality, high experience competition before the UFC, but obviously coming in and showing that he's improving and only getting better as he goes. He's got that really fast, like we said, counter right that was able to get him the win over Steve Garcia, 23 years old, 6 foot tall, 71.5-inch reach. He's going to be the much taller guy and have a 3.5-inch reach advantage against Rafa Garcia. Rafa Garcia is actually the favorite, but when you look at Tapology, 500 votes, 75% are on Machete. And I got to say, I am too. I think he's going to be faster than Rafa Garcia and be able to land more. I think his improvements, I think he's going to be getting better and better. I know Rafa Garcia at 28 years old is probably entering his prime here, but he's just shown more impingements when it comes to getting into standing striking battles. Nasrat Haqparast, you look at Chris Gutzmacher, you look at Drakkar Klose, another one. When you get into a fight with a stand-up with a striker, you just see Rafa Garcia start to fade there, especially as the fight goes on. Machete, I think he's going to have the youth and the experience and the explosiveness in his shots to put Rafa Garcia on the back foot early and probably take the second round from him. I think maybe in the third, you may start to see Rafa Garcia go in, start to come back here. But I think Machete, just being the younger 23-year-old, the force, and you can get him at near even here. I expect that to move a little bit. He's going to be the bigger guy. He's going to be the faster guy. He's younger. He's improving better. And, he's shown the ability to knock people out. And that's just not something that we've seen from Rafa Garcia. So for all those reasons, I'm going to go with Machete. He's also probably has the better chin too, considering his youth. So that's is that 3 or 4? It's 1, 2, 3, 4 prelim notables I got for you. The last one I want to talk about real quick is going to be Bryan Battle's fight. And I'm not actually picking this one in terms of picking Bryan Battle or picking Rinat Fakhretdinov. But I think Yarna, this is his second fight in the UFC. He has a decision win over Andres Michailidis. And then you have Bryan Battle, who's got that head kick knockout to Takeshi Sato. I would lean Bryan Battle. He's going to be longer. He's going to be taller. But I think Rinat is going to be a little bit more technical and a little bit more, I guess, Russian, if that's a way to describe him. He's going to have the grappling game and the clinch game that's going to be able to kind of swing the table back into his side if ever gets a little bit too nuts on the feet or it's not going his way. I'm going to lean Bryan Battle. It's not necessarily a pick that I'm too confident in or that I would advise anybody to follow or tail me on, but it is going to be a fight to watch because I am interested with Bryan Battle, being the not most recent, but second most recent tough champion. Always interested to see where these guys go and what happens with them. So with that being said, those were my prelim notables. You got Bryan Battle and Rinat. That's a fight that you're definitely going to want to watch. But in terms of me and what I'm taking Machete over Rafa Garcia. I'm taking Said Nurmagomedov over Said Yakub. A lot of Saids. Julian Marquez over Deron Wynn, and I like Jake Mathews over Semi the Jedi. I also think you have a pretty good shot at the Cheyenne Vilsilmas and Corey McKenna fight going to decision. So with that being said, I'm going to move up to the main card, and that comes with a little video. All right. I'm really a fan of that. So first fight on the main card, we have Cody Brundage taking on Michal Olanjacek. This is going to be a really interesting fight. Michal Olanjacek is a guy who fought at 205 before and actually has a win over Khalil Roundtree. Just watched it this morning. Was able to out-grapple him, take him down, and get the finish in the second round there. Michal is a guy who's got some strong grappling, but he's another guy who is just like Russian. His fighting style is Russian. He has a strong grappling base, but he wants to walk forward, his hands up, and he wants to strike with you. He wants to land big shots. He put away Sam Alvey in his most recent fight 3 months ago. But I think everyone, my mother and my brother could, and my sister could all put away. I don't know why I said it like that. I don't have a brother, but at this point, anyone can put away Sam Alvey. So, he had a very close, contested, but lost decision to Justin Jacoby 8 months ago. Shamil Gamatsov, he's got the uppercut win over Modestas Bukauskas, a split decision win. When it comes to guys who have really, really strong grappling and strong finishing ability is when we see Michel start to have a problem. But Cody Brundage is not a guy who, he does have strong grappling. That's his base. But when it comes to UFC caliber talent, it's just not strong enough. And he's not good enough at wrestling, his specialty, for it to really carry him to a lot of different wins here and a lot of success in the UFC. And when it comes to the feet, Michal Olanjacek is going to by far have the advantage. Cody Brundage isn't a guy we've seen have chin issues a ton. We have seen him be finished before. So I'm not sure if Michal is going to go out there and finish him, but I just think Michal Olanjacek is going to have a little bit of a better gas tank. He is going to be a little bit more composed, a little bit more technical. He is light on his feet and bounces back and forth. And Cody Brundage has the ability to, as the fight goes on, kind of gas out a little bit. So I think Olanjacek is going to have the better chin. I don't think Cody Brundage is going to land on him too much. I think if it does turn into grappling, Cody Brundage may may have the advantage, but I'm not very confident in that. And for a guy to be as much of a specialist and as good as a singular thing as Cody Brundage is, you need to be convincing in your grappling. So for that reason, I think there's just more ways that Michal Oleksiejczuk gets it done, including the knockout. That's going to make me a lot more confident in picking him. Both guys are very similar. Oleksiejczuk going to have the 2-inch reach advantage. So for that one, I'm going with Michal Oleksiejczuk. This is a very interesting fight, and I can't wait to watch it. Mainly because I'm a big Bobby Green fan. I love what Bobby Green is all about. He likes to go in there. He likes to have a fun fight, and that's all he wants to do is have a fun fight. When you listen to him on Rogan and he's in there with his dad and he's talking about his fighting style, he just wants to go in there and have fun. And he'd rather take a loss in a fun fight than win in a little bit more of a boring fashion. He's got some solid jiu-jitsu and some grappling, but make no mistake about it. Bobby Green wants to stand and fight with you. He'll throw some leg kicks here and there, but he is a boxer and maybe a little bit of a kickboxer with some active leg work. But really, he's going to stand there. He's going to want to throw. He's kind of like if Justin Gaethje had less power, you might have like a similar like Bobby Green style of fighter. Drew Dober is a guy who went in there and he's fought the best and he's taken the biggest shots from the best. I don't know the best, but definitely on his way up. Terrence McKinney is a guy that we saw going out there and finishing a wide variety of people very quickly and very, very convincingly. So to be able to go in there and take the wide variety of shots, the onslaught of shots that Drew Dober took against Terrence McKinney and still be able to turn it around and get that finish. I think it was in the first round too. I think that was just the craziest first round, 1-round fight of all time. But getting that win over Terrence McKinney, coming back and getting a TKO against Rafael Alves to the body. His only 2 losses in the UFC are to Islam Makhachev, which you're gonna be able to you're gonna forgive, and to Brad Riddell, which was a back and forth banger of a fight. Drew Dober's biggest strength is his jaw and his chin and his ability to take a shot. So for that reason, I think these guys are going to go and they're going to trade back and forth. Don't make any mistake about it. This is going to be a fight that you want to earmark, just like you would any Bobby Green fight or really any Drew Dober fight for that matter. Bobby Green is an exciting fighter. He's going to stand and he's going to throw. Drew Dober he's going to stand and he's going to throw. The problem is that Drew Dober, I think at this point, has more of the knockout power than Bobby Green. And by saying I think, I'm really more or less saying I know, because here's the deal. Bobby Green knocked out Al Iaquinta in 2021. Al Iaquinta was on his way out of the sport, and a lot of people knock out Al Iaquinta after the amount of damage that he's taken across his career. Before that, I think Bobby Green had knocked out, I forget who it was. It was someone notable, but it was 2013. Bobby Green is not a guy who's going to go out there and knock you out. He's going to go out there and have a fun fight, and he's going to trade. Drew Dober is a guy who can knock you out, and he's knocked out guys extremely recently, and he's taken shots extremely well. He's fast. He's powerful. If it turns into a grappling match, I still think Drew Dober can hold his own in that regard too. So for all those reasons, I think Drew Dober wins this one. I'm not sure if he finishes Bobby Green. Bobby Green doesn't have that ability, or hasn't shown that, just kind of off switch. So I'm not sure he's going to be able to finish him, but maybe it might be a TKO after beating him up and just getting in that top position, kind of where he was over McKinney, and just landing ground and pound. That may be an option here. I'm not exactly sure, but I think Drew Dober by decision or TKO is going to be your best bet. I don't think there's going to be a submission in this in this bout here. So the pick is going to be Drew Dober. Moving on up the card, we have Alex Bruce Leroy Caceres taking on Julian Erosa. And these are 2 guys in the featherweight division who have insane reaches, 6'1" and 5'10" respectively. Julian Erosa is a really tall guy for 145 pounds. To be a 6'1" and have a 74.5-inch reach, fighting out of Extreme Couture at 33 years old. He is the -180 favorite. Julian Juicy J Erosa coming in at 28-9. The 5 on in, he has a unanimous decision win over Hakeem Dawodu 2 months ago. He has a split decision win over Steven Peterson 9 months ago. A year and 3 months ago, he got the submission over Charles Jordan in a very interesting fight. He took a loss a year and 4 months ago, 1 month prior to that, to Sungwoo Choi via TKO. And then, just a bit ago, a year and 9 months ago, he has a TKO flying knee win over Nate the Train Landwehr. Looking at Alex Caceres, Bruce Leroy, most recently is his loss, the unanimous decision over Sadiq Youssef. Before that, he was on a nice win streak with a submission win over Sungwoo Choi. He had a decision win over Kevin Kroom. He had a submission rear naked choke win over Austin Springer, and he won a decision over Chase Hooper 2.5 years ago. So Julian Erosa is definitely the more active guy. He's going to be a little bit taller here. He's going to have an inch and a half reach advantage. He's got really weird proportions, Julian Erosa. He's kind of almost like his proportions are almost like a bendy straw because he fights kind of hunched over, and then his arms are just so long, even for his 6'1" frame. He's just able to pop that jab out there, and he has a really, really missile of a right hand. So Julian Erosa is a fun fighter, and he's one of those guys who's super long, and he actually doesn't fight to his length, oddly enough. He is the longer fighter in a lot of his matchups, but for whatever reason, he doesn't use that to stay on the outside. He'll still come in, and it makes his uppercuts and his hooks a lot easier to land because, if you have shorter limbs like me, your uppercut has to come. It has to make it has a larger path to travel. When you have a longer forearm and subsequently a longer bicep, it's just almost like an uppercut, but used as a jab. So if he can get in and pop that uppercut jab, it's going to be really, it's going to be to his advantage. So having that reach advantage, if he can pop a jab out there, and then if he gets on the inside, do that like uppercut jab that I was talking about, I think that's going to get him some really effective and positive. It's going to be good for him in the fight, should I say. Bruce Leroy, like I said, Sadiq Youssef, it was a really tough back and forth fight. In his wins, he is a fun fighter. He does, if you get him on the ground or you drop him, he is going to spin around. He is going to try and do some of those wild things, to wrap up a leg or try to tie you up. He fights like Bruce Leroy. I mean, kind of Bruce Lee is what I get when I think of him. And that's probably not for any like real, reason, any tangible reason, but just kind of the mythical Bruce Lee. But yeah, he kind of fights kind of like open like this. I can put this down. He kind of fights open like this. He's going to pop out the jab. He's actually in this fight, I think, going to fight like the longer fighter. He might even look a little bit longer in there just because of the way his fighting style and his stance. He pops that front leg out there. But I think ultimately Julian Erosa has some decent grappling and would be able to fight off Alex Caceres. But if there is an advantage point, it's going to be Alex Caceres in the grappling and the jiu-jitsu and his offensive style. And then Julian Erosa, he's going to have the stand-up advantage. So I am ultimately going to pick Julian Erosa here. I think he's a more accomplished fighter. I think he's more technical. I think he's got better defensive head movement, although Caceres does have good head movement too. But Erosa just a lot of the time just finds a way to avoid the bigger shots here. He's looked good against Dawodu. He's fought to these decisions before. He's fought the 3 rounds. He hasn't trailed off. And Caceres, because he's got such a wild style, as the fight goes on in the 2nd round, in the 3rd round, sometimes he can gas out a little bit and he can get tired. So in a war of attrition, I'm going to pick the longer fighter here. So the pick is going to be Julian Juicy J. Erosa. All right. Now we are on the third third from the top, 4th from the bottom. I don't know, whatever. It's Amir Albazi versus Alessandro Costa. Alessandro Costa, I believe this is actually his first fight in the UFC. Yep. 1 month, almost 2 months ago, he has a KO win over Carlos Gomez. He has a split decision win over Andres Luna Martinetti. The 12-0 Andres Luna Martinetti, easy for you to say, 3 months ago on the Contender Series, but before that has a win over a 10-2 guy, a win over a 12-5 guy, and then a unanimous decision win over a 5-5 guy. This is a guy who's got some knockout power to his name, and that's where he finds himself here. But ultimately, I think his knockout power is from guys who are just not of the caliber of fighting that the UFC is going to entertain. You see when he goes to fight a guy who is of somewhat UFC caliber, Andres Luna Martinetti, that's actually vetted by the UFC. You get the split decision. His power didn't quite come through there. And when you're looking at a guy like Amir Albazi, I mean, he submitted Francisco Figueiredo via rear naked choke. He fought a really, really technical, clear decision win over Zagla Zumagulov. He was in control for all of that fight. Has the submission via triangle choke over Malcolm Gordon, key lock submission over Ryan Curtis. That was outside of the UFC, but regardless, Amir Albazi is a really strong fighter. He's got the build. He's got the actual length for it too. Being at fighting at 125 pounds, 5'5", 68-inch reach, extreme couture. He's got the gym for it. Amir Albazi has really impressed me in every fight that he's been in so far. 15-1, the Prince. I think he's going to go in there and he's going to find a way to wrap up a submission on Alessandro Costa. Amir Albazi fights in a way that he's active. He moves around. He's going to pressure his opponent. It's going to be hard for Alessandro Costa to really get any power that he may have. It's going to be hard for him to get it off when he's being pressured by Amir Albazi. And then I think at some point Albazi is going to find the takedown, and then he's going to go to work. And that is not an area of expertise for Costa. So for this, I'm going to say Amir Albazi, and I think because it's a first round, it's going to be on the main card. The pressure may get to Costa a little bit. He's only 26 years old, a little bit young. He's going to be the smaller guy in there, coming from a smaller of a gym. I'm going with Amir Albazi. I think submission first round. All right, and with that, a very, very interesting, intriguing fight here in the co-main event of UFC Fight Night Cannonier versus Strickland. We have Arman Tsarukyan taking on Damir Ismagulov. This is a really interesting fight. Damir Ismagulov, I mean, these guys have seemingly fought each other and each other's opponents. It's like a round robin between Tsarukyan, Ismagulov, Mathews Gamrot, and I think it might be, and Guram Kutuladize. Guram fought Damir. Guram fought Mathews. Mathews fought Damir. And now Arman's fighting Damir. Arman fought Mathews. It's all back and forth. Bottom line is those four guys that I mentioned are the top of the UFC future of 155 pounds. Those guys would absolutely all run through Pady Pimblett. And, I think if you're a Pady Pimblett fan, kind of what I was talking about earlier, that's what concerns you. All of the cream of the crop that we're talking about as being the potential new champions in 2-3 years. Those guys are way better just on the ground, at stand-up, all around than Pady Pimblett. And you talk about Ilia Topuria, he's up there too. But when you look at this fight, Arman Tsarukyan versus Damir Ismagulov, Arman Tsarukyan is going to be the more strong guy. He's going to be filled out more. He might even be a little bit quicker. Damir Ismagulov is going to use the legs a little bit more. In Damir's most recent win over Guram Kutuladize, I'm actually of the mindset that Guram won that fight. I think he did more in the first and the second round to come away with it. And even in the third round, Damir, there was like an eye poke that was really hard, and Guram was like plead. It was very thankful that they decided to continue the fight and didn't take a point away, and because he was very convinced that he won the fight, and I agree. I think Guram won that fight, so I think Damir probably should be coming off of a loss here. I think Guram might be the best that the 155ers might have to offer, but then Ilia is really good too. 55 is just proving why it is the most interesting division in all of the UFC. Again, back to this fight. Both of these guys are really good at what they're good at. And what they're good at is what each other is good at. They have a strong striking base. Damir is a little bit more active with the leg kicks. Arman is a little bit faster and better with the jabs and the hooks. I think Arman has a little bit more of a pressure style, whereas Damir Ismagulov is going to be more of a counter striker. When it comes to the ground game, Guram was getting some of the better exchanges with Damir, but Damir was able to hold his own. I think Arman being stronger and having more of a wrestling base than a more of like a Greco-Roman base than a more of a jiu-jitsu base is going to help him. And I think he's a little bit more he's just going to have a little bit more control. He's going to have a little bit more top pressure. He's going to have a little bit more strength so that when it does come to wrestling, that Arman Tsarukyan is going to have the advantage. Like I said, going against Mathews Gamrot, he had that loss there. I think that was really close too. And I think, when you look at the grappling between him and Mathews, he was able to get Mathews to the ground, I think 4 times. Mathews only get him to the ground twice. And then Mathews was able to reverse it and then ultimately get back to his feet, whereas Arman was the one who was actually initiating the takedowns and being more successful with them, especially as the fight got later on. Arman was initiating the takedowns more and more and having more success, but Mathews was just able to get out of them and able to strike. And again, that was another really, really close fight there that could have went either way. Arman Tsarukyan and Mathews Gamrot. But for this specific fight, I think Arman's going to be stronger on the feet. I think he's going to be the stronger fighter. I think he's going to be the bigger fighter. I think he's going to be the quicker fighter. And even though he has he's 3 inches shorter and he has an 1.5 inch reach disadvantage, I think that plays into the way that he fights. I think he's going to be more of that grappling heavy guy, almost like I would say he's like a Michael Chandler 2.0 in the sense that he's, quick. He's got the strong athletic base. He's not going to be out muscled or out grappled. He can come in there and then he can land good shots. I think he's going to be able to get on the inside of Damir. I don't know if this one's going to be finished. I think it's going to go to a decision, but I think Arman Tsarukyan having the ability to get the takedown and land some hard ground and pound while he's down there, make it an active ground game. I think he's going to get the points for that. And I think also when it comes to the stand-up, it may be too close to call that you have to defer to the control time and who is initiating those takedowns and who is getting the ring generalship. And I think that's all going to go to Arman Tsarukyan. So for all of those reasons, I'm going with Arman Tsarukyan to get the win here over Damir Ismagulov. But this is going to be an awesome fight against two top competitors at lightweight that I think, no matter what happens, we're going to see these guys again. And now we move up to the main event of this final UFC card of 2022. Jared Cannonier versus Sean Strickland. Both of these guys are going to want to stand and strike. Jared, Killer Gorilla Cannonier, most recently is coming off of that unanimous decision loss to Israel Adesanya, in which he unanimously, I think, took the second round. I'm not positive it was the second round, but I know that he unanimously took a round from Izzy Adesanya. He's got the KO over Derek Brunson, in which he got him to the ground and landed some of the most vicious knockout ground and pound that I've ever seen. He also has the unanimous decision win over Kevin Gastelum. He lost to Robert Whittaker, and then he won via TKO uppercut to ground and pound to Jack Hermanson. That's the way Jared Cannonier wins. He at least 185 pounds. Sorry, it's hard to remember because Jared Cannonier is a guy who's fought at heavyweight, fought at light heavyweight. He's been all up and down the rankings, or not the rankings. He's been up and down the rankings too, but he's been all up and down the different weight classes. Jared Cannonier, he's gonna land a big bomb or two, and then that's gonna stun you, and he's gonna follow up, and then he's just gonna maul you until the ref pulls him off. That's the way Jared Cannonier historically has gotten his wins. Either that, or he wins the decision from landing more and being the longer fighter. Standing only at a 5'11", but having a 77.5 inch reach is what makes Jared Cannonier and his style successful, is being able to be far away and still land where his opponent, who may be taller than him, is still out of reach to land. So Jared's going to be explosive, come in, bang, 1-2, and be able to step out. Against Izzy, the problem was that Izzy has such long legs and Izzy had such good movement, he was going to be able to move away. In this case, against Sean Strickland, it just has that style where he's going to be like this and he's just going to march forward. So I think it's going to be good for Jared Cannonier to maybe stand his ground, pop in, bang, 1-2, and get out. The thing is, Sean Strickland, he has a history of going against guys with that style and still coming up ahead. It's because of his pressure style. It may be harder for Jared to pop in and then get out because the guy's always coming forward at you. You maybe want to move forward and be maybe moving side to side and then boom, pop in and then come out, or boom, pop in and then move off to the side. The fact that Sean Strickland, even against Pereira, was just walking forward like this is going to make it harder for Jared Cannonier to do the pop forward thing, because he's going to end up too close to him. So he's going to have to really be good at picking his shots and manage that, but having the reach advantage is always going to help. Sean Strickland, like I said, he's going to be moving forward. He's not going to be at that much of a reach disadvantage, 76 inches to 77.5 for Jared, the Killer Gorilla Cannonier. He's coming off that left hook knockout to Alex Pereira, but before that, he had the split decision to Jack Hermanson, in which he pretty much chased Jack Hermanson around the cage, and Jack wasn't that willing to engage in the standing battle and kind of ran away from him until the end when Sean Strickland was able to land the bigger shots. And for the majority of that fight, he was landing the better shots. So, that wasn't a bad decision against Uriah Hall. Also, that was an opportunity where Sean Strickland just went out there and kind of bullied Uriah Hall. He was just chasing him around the cage, winning in every area. And even I think there was a short grappling exchange in which Sean Strickland was getting the better of Uriah Hall. So with all that being said, I think Sean Strickland is going to try and chase Jared Cannonier around the cage. I'm concerned about Sean Strickland, a guy who has traditionally been willing to stand and trade. He had such a vicious knockout of Alex Pereira just 4 months ago, coming back against a guy with big power in Jared Cannonier. And Cannonier is not like, he's 38 years old, but it's not like we've seen him fall off. Like I said, he just took a round from Izzy Adesanya. I'm not sure if Sean Strickland in his even current state is going to take a round from Izzy Adesanya moving forward. I think Sean Strickland probably has a lot of potential to get finished by a guy like Izzy Adesanya, and he thinks that he can fix the issues with his style, the issues with his fight with Alex Pereira by just keeping his left hand or his right hand up a little bit more. That was what's going to fix. That was the only problem. No, dude, I think, he walks forward with this marching style and against more dynamic strikers, quick strikers, guys with heavy power, that's going to be it's not going to lead to success for Sean Strickland as he works his way up the UFC rankings here. So I'm actually going to go with Jared Cannonier. I think Sean Strickland had just been knocked out a little bit too recently and a little bit too viciously. I think he's going to still walk through like this. I think Jared Cannonier is going to be able to maneuver around, land the big 1-2, land a hook shot. I think he's eventually going to stun Sean Strickland and be able to follow up on it. It is a 5-round fight. So, and Jared Cannonier has just fought 5 rounds. To my knowledge, or Sean Strickland has fought 5 rounds against Jack Hermanson. He doesn't get tired. So that is one thing for Sean Strickland. He doesn't get tired, but so maybe later on in the fight he starts to find success, but Jared Cannonier can start to find it earlier. I think Jared Cannonier is probably going to take 3 rounds to Sean's 2. I don't think Sean is going to finish Jared Cannonier. In fact, I could say pretty confidently that Sean Strickland's not going to finish Jared Cannonier. So if anyone's getting finished, it's going to be Sean Strickland. Like I said, 4 months removed from that most recent knockout loss. So I think Sean's going to have to win by decision, and he's going to have to win by pressure, and he's going to have to bet on the fact that Jared Cannonier is not going to be able to land those powerful shots because he's moving forward. And maybe Sean can cut off the cage, but historically he hasn't really cut off the cage. He more or less chases people around. He just walks around them, and follows them the way they're backing up instead of moving aside, cutting off the cage, landing a shot, coming back over here, hitting another shot, coming over here, landing a jab, throwing a leg kick, mixing it up well. That's not Sean Strickland's style. His style is to just methodically walk around and land a good jab, land a good jab, land a good jab, 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 1-2, jab, jab, 1-2, body shot. Right. So I think Sean Strickland is just a little bit less diverse in a striker than Jared Cannonier. Jared Cannonier has the power. Both of these guys have pretty solid cardio. So for all of those reasons, I think it tips the scales a little bit for me to Jared Cannonier. So I'm going to go with Jared Cannonier to get the win here because he just has a little bit more of a variety of ways to get it done. Looking at Tapology, near even plus 100 for Jan and Cannonier, minus 120 for Sean Strickland. So an ever so slight favorite on Sean Strickland. But that is your final UFC card of the year, and those are Pickin Fights Tom's picks for it. So with that being said, it's time for our pick rundown. All right, time for the pick rundown. So starting at the bottom, heading towards the top. Starting the card off is Sergey Mazarov against Journey Newsom. I think I'm going to take Mazarov on that one. I'm also going to lean towards Brian Battle. Those 2 fights, grain of salt, I guess. Machete, I'm taking over Rafa Garcia. Saeed Nurmagomedov over Saeed Yakub. And I'm taking Julian Marquez over Deron Wynn. Jake Mathews over Matthew Semelsburger. Cheyenne Vasilmas and Corey McKenna going the distance. Cody Brundage taking on Michal Oleksiejczuk. I'm going with Oleksiejczuk here. But I don't understand why there's not. I think that fight's closer than the line has it and the Tapology people have it to be. But Michal Oleksiejczuk is the pick. Drew Dober over Bobby Green. He's just got too strong of a chin, and he's got finishing ability. At this point, Bobby Green doesn't. Bobby Green's getting a little bit older, and Bobby Green is too willing to engage in a fun fight than trying to win the fight. I think Julian Erosa is just more technical and has a better fight IQ than Alex Caceres, so I'm going with Julian Erosa. Amir Albazi is going to get the win over newcomer Alessandro Costa. I like Arman Tsarukyan to be a little bit stronger against Damir Ismagulov, but that's going to be a great fight in a toss-up. And then I like Jared Cannonier to get it done over Sean Strickland. I think Sean is fun. Hope there's a press conference. I want to hear him talk. He's fun at the press conferences. I like hearing him talk shit, but I think Jared Cannonier with the power and with the caliber opponent he fought recently, I'm going to have to go with Jared Cannonier. That being said, thank you guys for tuning in. We had a bunch of different people popping in here. Didn't get any comments, like I said, at the beginning of the fight, and reiterate now. If you're watching, you have anything to say, you have a comment on what I'm saying, what you have your own thoughts. You do like my picks here, my thought, my breakdown, my preview. You don't like it. You want me to talk about something, I don't mention a particular fight that you think is maybe a lock or is particularly notable, let us know. We like interacting. So even though it's only me here, I didn't have Keith to banter with today. It ended up still being a pretty decently long video here, or a decently long podcast if you're listening on Spotify. But yeah, feel free to jump in. We go live on Sundays. Make sure you follow us on Make sure you follow us on our socials, on Twitter and Instagram, at Pickin Winners, at Pickin Fights, at Pickin Fights Tom, to know exactly when we're going live. Follow us, or I already said follow us, but like, comment, subscribe. You can tell that I don't do this often. Like, comment, subscribe, like the video. We really do appreciate it. It helps out the channel. Comment, like I was saying earlier, so we can interact with you. Let us know what you're thinking and if we're doing good or bad for you. And subscribe so you know when we're going live, so you never miss anything about Pickin Fights, Pickin Winners, and you can win with us. Overall, UFC 282 was a pretty good card. I enjoyed it. We picked correctly on most of the fights. I think I only got 2 wrong, maybe. Alex Morono, I know, was one off the top of the bat. The draw, I don't know if you count that as being wrong, but I think the rest of the card was correct. I might have only got one other wrong that's escaping me right now. But thank you so much for tuning in. Listen to us on Spotify. Go over and check us out there if you're in the car. Yeah, thanks, guys. Have a good week, and we will see you in 2023.